Hey YouTube, what's going on? This is Cheeseboy628 here today, giving you really just a conclusion / analysis of my experience with the NPL, the National Pokeball League. So, first off, why don't we start with a conclusion, ironically. If you look here, you can see the standings and how everything turned out in the regular matches, like before the final tournament, determining who is the best team ever. So first off, it should be mentioned that here are the conference leaders. There were 3 conferences of 4 teams each, and so the winner of each gets a guaranteed spot in the final bracket tournament, and that bracket tournament includes 5 teams total. So where do the other 2 come from? Well, it comes from the wild card race, and those are the next 2 highest, no matter what conference you are in the so just record wise. Something that I hadn't mentioned that I'll probably mention again when I talk about something else in a second is that what matters most is your record, meaning that the more wins you have guarantees you a way better position compared to differential. Like, you can have a much higher differential. By the way, differential is like the amount of Pokemon you win by in each game. And so, with that in mind, it's definitely more important to win with like a 1-0 as opposed to trying to go for a 5-0 and then like choking it away in order to lose with like lose 1-0, you know, that kind of sitch. Anyway, you may see here I am the Phoenix Sunkern. I love my logo. Real myself. Call me Art Master. But so you see my spot here, 6, 7, 8, 9. I am 9th place out of 12. And you're probably looking like, cheese, you're insane. How in the world are you so bad? And I'm like, you know, that's a good question, but looks can be slightly deceiving. Let me explain why. Number 1, I was at a differential of -2 with a record of 6 and 7 before the last match. As you may notice, is if I won, that would put me in a record of 7-7, which is in the same section as these 3 teams here. Now, by just winning alone, that would put me above -2, maybe -1. That would make me higher than the New England Patriots. But if I just won with a 1-0, I would be at a differential of -1, which means I would be right behind the LA Nidokings. If I get a 2-0 victory, I would be tied with the Nidokings, and I'm not sure how that would make us compete for the position of like who actually earned that spot of 6th place. But if you may have noticed from a couple weeks ago, by a couple weeks ago I mean a couple uploads ago, because I didn't upload things in a very great schedule, my apologies, but I had a very good setup to win against the LA Nidokings if that's how it would work. You may be like, why does it even matter competing for the Nidokings? Well, the Tampa Bay Rayquazas, they are the 5th place, but for some reason, I think I saw an upload on their channel too, that they just aren't really into Pokemon, and they just don't want to participate in the tournament of the NPL, which is quite interesting, I must say. But either way, that means the Nidokings got to take that position, so that way the bracket wouldn't just be empty for the first round. So with that in mind, if I would have just gotten a 2-0 victory, instead of worrying about a significant score lead against Togevoir, the Portland Timbers, I think I would have had a better chance. But I simply did not play correctly around that Mega Gallade, because it was just a set that I was not expecting. I'm not going to say anything about it because it clearly did its job. So, with that said, I was actually a lot closer than it may seem. By just winning with a 2-0, I probably could have been in the finals, which is kind of insane, considering if you guys look back, I did not have a very good, like, I didn't even expect to have 6 wins. because of how ridiculous I've had to face Hex. Now, to be fair, 2 of my wins were against the Green Bay Palkias, and if you see, their record is very lackluster, to be honest, and that's because they didn't play most of their matches, and therefore most people that faced him got an automatic +3 for the forfeit. I got 2 +3 benefits from him because the second one, I mentioned this in a video or 2 ago, that because we battled after the fact, even though he won, it was after the fact, and therefore I got the +3 differential. So, with that said, that's kind of the conclusion there, and just, let's see, why did it end up the way it did? Well, as I kind of mentioned, Hacks was not exactly very much in my favor. I mean, it was terrible. I was legitimately probably, if we had to compete, I would probably win for most Hacks, most unlucky player of this friggin' season. I don't think many people would disagree. So there's that, and the fact that I'm an expansion team. Now, an expansion team means that I'm just added on, and I'm after the original draft. That's why my team looks so UU, other than the Megas, which everyone gets to pick equally. So with that said, I was at an immediate disadvantage. Even though I liked my team, I mean, it was just so oriented for offense that there was not much I could do for most stall teams. So that was another reason why I don't think the season went very well. This is Season 2 of the NPL's existence, by the way. I was first invited because I happened to know Jolt, who is the Toronto Star Raptors, shout out to him, for doing exceptionally well, only being 2nd place, only. What kind of adjective was that there? Very awesome differential, and the fact that he's almost 1st place just by 1, wow. If he would have beaten me the 2nd time, if he would have played with like all his best mons, he probably would be number 1 right now. Nonetheless, shout out to Token Minorities, baby. So yeah, with that in mind, I don't want to make this video too long. I just wanted to explain my whole analysis of the situation and let you guys know what's going on. Let's see. So what was I even getting at this point? That basically this is how the tournament bracket is set up, and so 4th and 5th place face round 1, and the 1st place person will face the winner of that because they have the advantage for doing so well the entire season. So from there, Jolt and the Atlanta Braviaries will play, and they will compete 1st through 4th place. And I really like that because it's very easy to tell who gets 1st and who gets 5th, etc. So yes, I was kind of saying the NPL Season 2, I was at a disadvantage at first. Oh yes, I was going to say with Jolt, how I was kind of invited by him. I talked to Katoth, who is actually the leader of the Detroit Gale Wings. Interesting how he's number 1. I mean, I had a really good battle with him, but like, honestly, Hacks is a huge factor in that game. Like, I really think it would have played out drastically differently. I remember that quite vividly. But yeah, so basically he asked like what I would be interested in team-wise and, well, like logo-wise, kind of name-wise, that kind of thing. I'm saying wise a lot. But yeah, so from there, I just had to do a test battle against someone, and I won, I think, 3-0 or something fairly significant. They did their little review, and they let me in. So it was pretty cool from there. I was digging it. I was in one experience like this before, but it only lasted like 2 weeks before it completely fell apart, so I'm really glad the organization really kept everything alive here, other than one person not exactly staying in the game too much. So, but other than that, people like to be fairly serious about it, and it was cool. But coincidentally, a little bit too serious at times, because, I mean, we all know the game of Pokemon is a good amount of strategy, but Hacks is definitely a factor in the end, which is quite unfortunate. In the case of luck being sometimes the win factor of certain teams, certain games, certain situations. So, even then though, it's Sure, there's the anger about that, especially when it's immediately right after the battle or during the battle. It just makes relations with players rather difficult to keep strong. And when some people try to make excuses as to why, and I do say excuses because, I mean, in the end, the goal, especially of NPL, is to play with your team as well as you can. Like, you're trying to prepare specifically for that other person's team. You've got to make sets that work as efficiently as possible. So when people say, oh, I just had a bad matchup and stuff, it doesn't in service to, it does a disservice to the player who ended up winning. It's really kind of an insult of like, oh yeah, your skill didn't matter in this, it was just the fact that I had a bad matchup. No, we don't need these excuses. I get some people didn't have the great, like some people had to pick up teams that other people picked. But in the end, each team had like significant win conditions and some people just didn't implement them correctly. So that made me have bad relations with a couple of people for a little bit because I was trying to say that, you know, this team, you may see the video where the most kind of hatred of like, the competition and like anger in the battle. I'm not going to address who specifically because I don't want to target anyone. But basically with this situation, it was just them making reasons as to why their team couldn't win anyway. And I was saying how there's different sets that you could have done, but they wouldn't accept that as an answer and just said that I was wrong and that like I would have won no matter what, which I found offensive because it was like I clearly just knew your team structure pretty well and therefore I prepared for it and I happened to be very much right. So basically I basically said that their team choice, their team synergy and structure was off. And so some people were saying, geez, you can't say that, like that's offensive. But I'm like, I mean, it's offensive if you are super defensive about it, but in the end it's the truth. Like if you have mons where 2/3 of your team are weak to ice, I'm going to bring mons that have ice type moves. And so what you're going to want to do is bring as many mons that aren't weak to ice as possible, or things that can absorb ice as well as possible, etc., you know? But they failed to do that. Instead brought 2/3 of their team, I'm pretty sure, is weak to ice. So I was able to prepare for that rather easily, and that's how that kind of went. But they wouldn't accept that, and it just made me have bad relations with a couple of people. Anyway, what that kind of made me conclude for a while after a couple of weeks, especially with the fact that trying to communicate about this issue was very difficult. No one would address the issue through call or messages after their 10 minutes of outburst at me. So I definitely felt targeted, and I felt like I'm not really sure if I should really continue with this league. With this leadership and these players, I don't feel comfortable having great synergy with them. But I talked to Jolt about this, and conveniently, Jolt is actually going to be the leader of Season 3 for NPL. So he talked about very promising future for the NPL, and so I'm very stoked about that. So I will be continuing the NPL. In the end, it's a very cool idea, and I really like it a lot. The fact that I have a pretty darn low ranking also means that I'm going to be able to pick new mons and have an advantage of picking mons, probably. So therefore my team is definitely going to get significantly stronger, and I'm quite glad about that. Let's talk about my team just a little bit. I basically brought Mega Metachan to everything because it was my strongest mon by far. Suicune next because this is kind of the core that I always used, and I mean, most people prepared for it, but in the end, Suicune is a monster. I brought Donphan a lot because that was my rocker and my spinner. Ended up not being as useful as I wish it was. Cloister was a really good setup mon. It was really the only one I had that could get fast and just like sweep really quickly. It did decently. Darmanitan was my next bet, and it did pretty decent. I was able to use a variety of sets with it. I'm glad about that. So, also I have Gudra. Goudreau was really my best special wall, and that's kind of saying a lot because my team just wasn't prepared. I just realized that, like, I'm like, why are all these colors mixed up? It's in order of, like, I guess games played mostly. Then Scrafty had that one amazing game that brought me back into the series in the first place. And then we have Zygarde, did whatever. Escav, it was good because people didn't expect things. Chestnut really didn't do that much, unfortunately. And Musharna almost swept team until it got crit twice, even though one crit only mattered, but still, it's the thought that counts. So yeah, I mean, in the end, it wasn't too bad, but Hex was a very large factor. So that means, yes, NPL Season 3 should be coming, and you guys will be updated once I know more about that. What this points toward next is something called the Fear GBA League. So after a few weeks of NPL, there was inspiration headed by Jolt saying, hey, why don't we take our Fear, the clan that I had the clan war with, as I represented that clan. And they thought, why don't we do a GBA League for that? And we are very much doing that, where there are 10 teams, and there are 2 conferences, and there will be 4 teams going onward for the tournament. So I find that to be very cool, because I'm not going to be an expansion team. It's going to be brand new. It's going to be Season 1. And so I'm going to be picking mons that I really like and have the equal opportunity as the other teams. So I'm very much excited about that. As I'm uploading this, I'm already through like week 3 or so, but I'm very much excited to do that because I know a decent amount of the people there well. We're going to be getting to know each other even more well as we're going to be working together as a clan. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about that. That's kind of just my overview of the whole situation. All in all, it's a really cool experience. It's a really cool idea. If you have friends or found people online that you are able to do this with, I definitely recommend it. It does take a decent amount of effort to keep it together and make sure everyone's doing their battles and whatnot. But, I mean, in the end, if you like this style, you know, if you like sports, if you like drafting and that kind of thing, it's a cool idea all in all. So I do hope you all enjoyed this video. This is just my overview, and thanks for watching. Like, comment, sub, and until later, peace.